It's Coastal Gardener on the Talk Station FM 107.1. And joining us today, Sean Banks of the Carter County Agriculture Extension Agency. Keep beating up on him. I appreciate him constantly showing up when I call him. But I want to find out, with all this warm weather, and we're seeing I'm seeing a lot of trees blossoming, pink trees, as a matter of fact. I'm trying to figure out what they are. And then I see daffodils. Spring is springing, it looks like.
It is springing.
Good afternoon to you there, Sean.
It is springing. And I've noticed the daffodils, and I've noticed a lot of weeds that are blooming. But as far as the pink trees, I would probably need to see them. I think there's a flowering apricot that's blooming. And there may be a really early flowering dogwood that has a pink flower to it.
Okay, no, this isn't dogwood, but maybe it's the apricot. I didn't take a picture of it. I should have.
It's a little bit early for cherry trees and peach trees, but it may be a flowering apricot.
How about Bradford pears?
Not quite yet. I've seen the buds are starting to swell, but I haven't seen any flowers yet.
But if we see Bradford pears, we got to cut them down.
Well, we don't have to cut them down. It would be really nice, but you don't have to.
Yeah, but share with us the issue of the Bradford pears, because I think that's a topic that requires reminding for all of us.
Well, with the Bradford pears, they're like some other species that they come in and they look really good. And when we first introduce them, we put them into the landscape as pretty flowering trees. And originally, Bradford pears were thought to be sterile and they wouldn't be able to produce fruit. But nature has a way of proving us wrong. Eventually, they were able to start producing fruit, and once they started producing fruit, then the birds would eat the fruit because it's a small fruit and it's really good to them. And then they would leave the seeds in the woods, and then they start growing and they start crowding out the other trees because they grow so fast.
Well, there's several other aspects about the Bradford pear. One of having to do with pollinators.
Well, yeah, the pollinators, a lot of times because they're pollinated by bees, they don't bring in not bees, they're pollinated by flies, so they don't bring in the bees as well as some of the other plants do.
They pollinate by flies because they smell so badly.
They smell awful, yes.
Oh, my land. Another reason why you want to reconsider planting a Bradford pear. But the other aspect of it is they're not only not native, they are also pretty fragile.
Yes, they have really tight branching angles, and trees that have really tight branching angles tend to split when we get either an ice storm or some really heavy winds. And so, or if we were to ever get snow again, I remember after our last snowstorm, there were lots of branches down all over everywhere. But because they have really tight branching angles, they tend to split because they're not really strong branching angles.
All right, so I just mentioned that in relationship to the Bradford pear, so that did come up. As a matter of fact, I've got to remind folks, was it Guilford County and I think one other county was actually having what's the word?
A bounty?
Bounty, yeah, for bringing in Bradford pear.
Yes, I think there are 3 or 4 other counties across the state this year that are going to be doing that same program. I think Wilmington is involved in that, but I think that's the closest one to where we're at this year.
That just, I mean, I bring in a Bradford pear, and what was that? They've got a plant of
they'll
plant.
They'll let you pick from one of the native trees that are very similar.
Well, I point that out simply because that's, to me, an indication that the Agriculture Extension Agency, the North Carolina Agriculture Department, really sees the Bradford pear as a problem.
Yes, they've seen that it can be a real issue, and because it is such a popular tree in the landscape, that's one way they're finding of being able to get rid of it. I wish they would do something like that with the privets and the Japanese ligustrum, but maybe later on down the road.
Okay. The Japanese ligustrum, I'd have to get a better picture of that. But
it's very similar to the privet. The privet has the really small leaves. The Japanese ligustrum has a bigger, dark, shiny leaf. They both flower about the same time. The flowers smell very similar. They're in the same kind of arrangement. I just don't like the smell of the flower.
Okay. Well, obviously, we're here today talking with Sean Banks of the Carter County Cooperative Agriculture Extension Agency, and we're finding out what he likes and doesn't like, and of course we should plan accordingly. No, it's not that, but
No, there are a lot of really nice plants out there that I'm not really fond of, but they do really well in the landscape. And if somebody calls up and asks, I will recommend those ones, without any prejudice against them, because they do well in our area, and why not plant them if they do well?
all right. I of course jumped right into the conversation, as I'm always want to do. I know you've got other ideas or other topics you want to bring up, but I want one other quick question for you. This beautiful weather we've experienced over the past 4 days, and of course it's still February. At least that's what it shows on my calendar.
Yeah, my calendar too.
But it feels more like mid to late March right now. We really do need to be cautious. I'm asking, really not saying, do we need to be cautious about what we're doing over the next couple of weeks in possibility for a major freeze or cold snap?
Yes, we do. A lot of times this is the kind of weather that people get really anxious and want to get out and start planting peppers and tomatoes in their vegetable garden. We are expecting to have at least 1 or 2 more hard freezes before the middle of March. I think it's been the last 2, possibly 3 years, we've had a really hard freeze on Good Friday. So a lot of times the farmer's almanac will say wait to plant until Good Friday. So for some reason that seems to be a little bit of a good advice.
And the other, actually, wait until Good Friday. I thought it was to wait for the week after Good Friday, as a matter of fact. And we talked about this in the past, based on zones.
Right.
That 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it changes radically.
Yes, it does. And for our area, I would say at least wait until Good Friday. And a lot of times, our frost-free date here is in this area is around March 20th, give or take a couple of weeks. So I would at least wait until the frost-free date has passed. A lot of times with tomatoes and peppers, especially because they are warm season crops, they don't like to be planted when the soil's still really cold. So wait and give them enough time to really the soil to warm up before you plant them. I would recommend putting them in mid to late April, just to make sure that the soil's warm enough and there's not going to be any super cold nights.
Okay. Just to show that I have been listening so that I can prepare to become a master gardener, I want to bring up a question related to items that we've brought in as house plants. They were outside. We've brought them in into the homes, where they're house plants that eventually will be going outside. Obviously, to your point, this weather, let's go out and let's plant these plants. What happens to a house plant that has been inside, enjoys a few days of warmth and sunshine, etc., and then we have this a possible cold snap? What happens to those house plants? And is it, if you've put the plant outside, but you suddenly discover you're going to have a major cold event, can you bring that house plant back in without damaging it?
Yes, you can bring the plant back in without damaging it. A lot of times what you can do is, if you really wanted to, you could move them out during the warm weather, and then when the temperatures are going to get 40 or below, you can bring them back in. That helps them to kind of get acclimated again to being back outside. One of the other things you want to keep in mind as you're starting to move those back outside is you don't want to put them right out into full sun. I have a couple of hibiscus plants that I bring in, and we put them in a full sun in the window, but the light is so much less inside, even in the full sun window, that they need to acclimate a little bit to a little bit more sun each week until they get out into full sun.
Okay. That's the story I didn't hear. You haven't told me about this one before now. All the more reason why I've got to listen every week to Coastal Gardener here on the talk station with Sean Banks of Carter County Cooperative Agriculture Extension Agency. Sean, you say be careful of sunlight, putting them in full sunlight, even though the sun is low on the horizon, because, well, we're not yet into the spring solstice, but even that, I'll call it the winter sun, could potentially be too much initiated sunlight for a plant that's been in the house.
Yes. If you were to take a light meter and put a light meter right inside the window where it's full sun and read the intensity, it's probably between 3 and 5,000 lumens. If you take that same light meter and put it right outside the window, it's probably closer to 40 or 50 lumens. So you've gone up by about 10 times as high in your light intensity. And what the plants do is they take that light and they turn that into energy. Just imagine if you all of a sudden go from very little bit of energy to cranking it all the way up, you're going to blow that light bulb, or you're going to blow up that plant. And so what happens is it burns those leaves up, and then they have to start all over.
All the more reason why I enjoy the conversations with Sean Banks, again, the Agriculture Extension Agency in Carteret County. And I just want to make mention of this. If you're doing any planting, or if you have any expectations coming up, it would pay to give your local Agriculture Extension agent a call. Well, more to come here in just a moment on Coastal Gardener, and I'm going to back away from the microphone and let Sean give us his agenda for the day. And with that, just to remind you, don't hesitate to give your local Agriculture Extension agent a call in every county of Eastern, or every county in North Carolina. Here, and of course today, talking with Sean Banks on Coastal Gardener. It's Coastal Gardener on the Talk Station FM 107.1. And joining us today, Sean Banks of Carteret County Cooperative Agriculture Extension Agency. Where's the cooperative work? Is it Carteret County Cooperative? Is that right?
It's actually North Carolina Cooperative Extension, and our office is in Carteret County.
Okay.
It's a statewide agency, kind of like NCDA. But we do have offices in every county, and we have agents in every county. So if you do have questions, feel free to contact your county office.
Okay. All right. So I went right into the program, as I am seldom inclined to do, asking you 1,000 questions. But let's go with your agenda for the day.
Okay. Well, I did have a few things that I wanted to mention. We've talked a lot in recent weeks about native plants and why to use native plants and which plants not to plant, which ones to get rid of, that kind of thing. And I wanted to let people know we have an event coming up on March 14th. I know that's a long ways away. It's from 9:30 until 11. More information about how to register for that is on our county website, but it's going to be a statewide event. It's going to be on Zoom, and the title of it is Plant This, Not That, or Plant This Instead. I can't remember which one it is, but we're going to talk about some of the non-native invasive plants and which plants that are native would fill a similar niche to those plants.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you here on this quick question related to the native plants. We've got some plants that are native to Piedmont, North Carolina, or to Western North Carolina, but not coastal North Carolina, and vice versa. Will that be, in other words, is it focused on a specific region?
The plants we're going to talk about, because both of the presenters, myself and Amy works down in Brunswick County. Yeah. We're here on the coast, so we're going to pretty much try to focus mostly on the plants for the coast. And a lot of these plants that we would focus on for the coast would also work probably in the Piedmont, except for maybe one or two of them that we'll talk about.
Okay, March 14th. And it's going to be a Zoom meeting?
It will be a Zoom meeting, and you do need to pre-register. And I think they said there's only 300 slots.
Whoa.
So if you can get registered early, put it on your calendar, that would be the best thing to do.
We're talking about it today.
Right.
Okay, how do they pre-register?
If you'll go to our website, the carteret.ces.ncsu.edu.
One more time.
Carteret.ces.ncsu.edu. Wow. It is on our calendar of events, and it has the information on how to go, where to go to, what website to go to in order to register for that, to make sure that you can get into that event or into that Zoom when it comes on.
Okay. Will it be recorded?
I think they are supposed to be recording it, but I don't know if they're going to release it to everybody. I would think so, because it's a free event, that they would make it available to everyone. But we do want to have as many people on there during the event as we can get on there.
One more time. March 14th is when it's taking place. What time of day?
From 9:30 to 11 o'clock. So it's an hour and a half. We'll talk about, we'll define what an invasive plant is. We'll define why we don't want to have those invasive plants, because not every non-native plant is invasive. So we're going to talk about, we're going to kind of define what that is, and then we'll talk about some of the plants and which ones that we would use in order to replace those.
And one more time, that website is Carteret?
If you go to carteret.ces.ncsu.edu, ncsu.edu. That's our Carteret County Cooperative Extension website.
Okay, the CES stands for Cooperative Extension.
Right.
Okay, Service, Cooperative Extension Service. Carteret.ces, that's Charlie Echo Sierra, dot NCSU, of course, that's
North Carolina State.
That's an institution in Raleigh. Dot edu. Okay, March 14, only 300 Zoomers will be able to zoom in.
Right. So if you have a group of people that you want to get on there, watch it together, and just one person has to register, and then you can all watch it together.
Outstanding. Okay. All right.
But that'll be a really great event. I wanted to make mention of that before we got too far along, because that was something that I think will be important and a lot of people will be interested in. So those people in the area that want to listen or tune in, go ahead and get registered soon.
All right.
Another thing that we've got going on is the corn growers referendum. And this is the Corn Growers of North Carolina, Corn Growers Association of North Carolina are having a referendum. And what they do is every 6 years, the corn growers vote on whether they want to continue a self-assessment on the corn that's sold, and so a certain portion of those funds from the corn that's sold goes back into research and helps fund the research that goes on to help them to have better corn varieties.
Okay. Are we talking about corn that also is sold at farmers markets too?
No, this is not sweet corn. This is going to be field corn.
Commercial corn.
Yeah, grain corn, that kind of thing.
Okay. And question, how many corn growers here in Eastern North Carolina? I know there are some. Is it fairly...
I don't know about all of Eastern North Carolina. I know here in Carteret County, we have about 7 large farmers. We might have a couple more farmers that are smaller farmers, but we have 7 that do farm here in this county. I would imagine there's probably more in Onslow County and Craven County, possibly even in Jones County than what we have here in Carteret.
All right. I've got another question I want to ask you about that, but I've been asking all the questions. You may have some other items.
Well, one of the things that they're doing for the corn growers is they're going to change the amount of the assessment from 1.25 cents per bushel. They're going to change that to 0.3% per bushel, and that's going to get them back in line or more in line with the other row crop associations across the state. So that they can have the funds. One of the things that they think they may be able to do with those funds is fund a specialist that would be statewide to help with some of the research that takes place.
I've driven down the highway and seen signs related to an area where there's a experimentation going on,
right?
Developing hybrids for corn.
And a lot of times you'll see the signs at the signs at the end of the road that say agro and then have a number, or some other company name and have a number, and that's the different varieties that they've gone through probably 4 or 5 years worth of testing in laboratories and small research stations before they put it out into big fields to see
let me
how it competes.
Go into depth on this one. What are they looking for? I mean, quality. What specifically are they looking for to determine whether or not I'll use the word a hybrid is worth pursuing?
What depends on what they're specifically looking for, but sometimes it's disease resistance.
Okay.
Sometimes it's insect resistance. Sometimes it has to do with drought resistance. And then the big one is yield. Will it yield enough to be profitable for the farmer? Because if it's resistant to all these things, but it only produces 1 ear of corn per stalk, then it's not worth growing.
Okay.
So they usually look for a lot of different things.
All right. I was curious about our immediate area. I mentioned corn. What right now are the major food or commercial crops being grown in Eastern North Carolina? And we can focus on Carteret County.
Eastern North Carolina as a whole, you got a lot of peanut growers. You've got sweet potatoes do really well in this area.
We are the sweet potato capital of the world.
Well, we're number 1 or number 2, but yes,
okay,
we do a whole lot. We have a lot of field corn, soybeans.
Okay.
Cotton does really well here. It's not an edible crop, but we do grow a lot of cotton in Eastern North Carolina. So those are kind of going to be the big ones. If you go a little bit further inland, even here in Carteret County, occasionally we'll have one or two fields of tobacco. Tobacco still produces a whole lot in eastern North Carolina. We've got a really good environment, especially in the Johnston, Wayne, Sampson, Wilson
Right.
County areas. They've got really good soil for tobacco, so they still rotate tobacco through that area quite a bit. But we do have quite a bit of agriculture that goes on. They're trying to introduce some new row crops, possibly some canola. There's some research going on this year with canola, and there'll probably be a few other ones that they'll do a little bit of research on. Some of those make it, and some of them the
Right.
farmers say it's just too difficult to switch over equipment, and so it just doesn't work out.
We're talking with Sean Banks of North Carolina Cooperative Agriculture Extension Agency in Carteret County, the Carteret County agent. I'll get this title correct here at some point. Wrapping it up, I want to bring up another topic very quickly, but any other items?
One more thing I want people to be aware of is that we will be we'll have Master Gardener volunteers at the Home and Garden Show on the first weekend in March. So I think that's March 4th and 5th.
Right.
We'll be there to answer your gardening questions, hand out soil sample boxes, and that kind of thing.
As a matter of fact, I was going to ask you about Master Gardeners. When does your next Master Gardener class open up?
My next Master Gardener class here in Carteret County is gonna begin on March 2nd, so right before the Home and Garden Show. We're taking applications right now.
Right.
So if you're interested in that, get in contact with me really quickly so that I need to have a number before I get started.
How many pages of do we have to write in our thesis to sign up? It's not that bad.
It's not a really bad application. I think it's a 4 or 5 page application, but if you took all the words and put it together, you could probably fit it on a half a page.
Okay, all right. We're talking with Sean Banks about the Master Gardener. Where's the Master Gardener program actually conducted?
We usually have ours in the CMAS building on the 3rd floor right there in our office. We'll have a couple of field trips during the course of the class to go out into different areas to see different things.
And again, how long is it?
We'll start on March 2nd, and we'll meet every Thursday until May 25th. So it's about 3 months long. We do about 40 hours worth of training, and then we ask for 40 hours of volunteer work or volunteer service to be returned to us after you get finished with the class. And then each year after that, if you want to continue as a Master Gardener volunteer, it would be 20 hours of service after that. And each county may be a little bit different, but a lot of them follow those same rules.
I want to thank Sean Banks for taking the time to be with us today, again, here on Coastal Gardener. And very quickly, Sean, the phone number to reach your office.
It's area code 252-222-6352.
All right. And of course, you can go online.
Yes, you can go to our website at carteret.ces.ncsu.edu, and you can get more information there.
And you can also register for the Zoom.
Yes,
meeting.
that's correct.
March 14th, 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Looking forward to hearing more about that. As always, Sean, thanks for being with us.
Well, you're welcome.
Coastal Gardener here on the Talk Station FM 107.1.